Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach, joins us. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Pablo, I should never say stuff like this out loud because it just made me look like a fool after 90 minutes of soccer. But given the fact that San Diego is apparently without their striker with a hamstring injury, and they've only scored 2 goals, and RSL scored 2 goals, and one of them was own goal, I expect a low-scoring game. So should now I've now angered the soccer gods, and I should expect 3-2 or 4-3?
Your guess is as good as mine, DJ. The game of football, I mean, every coach wants to win games 2-3-0, and rarely does that happen. So your guess is as good as mine. But I think, both teams have established an identity, and now it's really fine-tuning those moments inside the box that are going to both create and negate chances on goal.
And sure, you got a break against Seattle, but I have always believed in sports in general, those things even out. So if you lip out a putt, you make a 30-footer the next time around that you didn't think was going to go, right? And in the end, it's all a wash, and you got to keep doing what you're doing. So with that in mind, given the fact that you did win, how important is that as you're trying to have some positive reinforcements in what you're telling these guys?
Yeah, like I said last week, I feel like in the 3 previous games that we had played, there was a lot of good stuff between the boxes, right? So identifying the way we want to play, how we can build pressure with and without the ball and kind of control the game on our terms. And I think we did that in the 3 games. What we didn't do a good job of is winning the boxes, right? And so, minimizing opponents' chances on goal, and more importantly, capitalizing on ours. And so I think, when I look back at this Seattle game, I feel like there was moments of good control between the boxes. There was disciplined defending. There was good attacking play. But really, it's about taking your chances. And the fortuitous goal that we conceded also comes. I believe you create your own luck. And so, we've been talking to our 10s about getting in the box. And Luna was a lone guy up there with 2 center backs. We put in a cross. He makes a run before the cross comes in, which pulls the center back towards his goal, which now creates a moment of indecision for the defense. And so for as much as it was, bad luck on our part, it's us putting the balls in dangerous boxes and, more importantly, having players in positions that ask questions of the defense. So, I think we just build on that performance. It's been a good week in training, so really excited about this game tomorrow.
Did you see it during training this week? You've talked about the competition for jobs. It looks like there's 7 guys who can play across the back line who have gotten good results for stretches when they've had a chance to play. And it looks like you got a good result there. I'm wondering if the 3 guys who don't start are really pushing in practice now, thinking, man, if I'm not good in this training session, I'm going to be back on the bench, and I hate that.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think after a first win of the campaign, continuity is fairly important. And so the decisions now are less to do with, the training week as much as it has to do with, building some chemistry within the group, right? And so that's something that we've talked about and, we'll hammer out today. But I feel like our training environment has probably been the most competitive since I've been here. In other words, I feel like in the past there's been one guy where you're like, this is the guy, and he has to play. Where now it's like, I see guys that aren't getting regular minutes performing really, really high. And so my challenge to the group is, Tuesday's the most important day because it's the day no one cares to train. It's the day there's no fans. It's the furthest from the game, but yet it's also who's dialed in for this training session. Because again, the way you train, your brain and your body don't know any different when it comes to Saturday.
Do you find, you speak of that chemistry, that some lineups and some guys just perform better than others, even though somebody else might have a little more talent, but for whatever reason, this unit meshes particularly well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'd say yes, absolutely. Because I guess it all depends on what you call talent, PK. And I think that's a big, I'd love to dive into that. Because when we talk about talent, it's what fans see with the ball at the weekend. But for me, in particular on the back line, the biggest talent is communication, right? And so you could be an unbelievable individual 1v1 player. You can have great distribution. You can, there's a lot of things that you can do that people will say, man, that's talent. But for me, it goes back to the fundamentals. And the more I'm in coaching, the more John Wooden had it right. it's only ever about that. Because if you do those little things right, you'll be able to keep the ball, when you have it as a defender. But more importantly, you're always going to be in good positions. And then when you can be in good positions and communicate to the line ahead of you, now you've linked the chemistry piece that you're talking about, right? So chemistry is as much, the communication, putting players in front of you in positions so that your job becomes easy. And, there's this one guy, Yam Stomp at Man United, and they had this data roll out. And they started looking at the data, and he had 0 actions. And all the other defenders around him had a ton of actions. And so they decided, based upon the data, that they're going to let him go to AC Milan. And when they went to AC Milan, he killed it. And they went back and reviewed why. And it was because he was always in a great position and always communicating where the action always went away from him. So that, for me, is real talent, and is how you can be as efficient with your energy, yet always be in the best positions for the team.
And that leads straight into why you kept starting Matt Crooks week after week when people were saying there's no goals, there's no assists, what is this guy doing? And you told me once that there's no way Andres would have done what he did if he didn't have Matt Crooks holding up the ball and basically pointing at him like, you're going to run down the line now and I'm going to give you the ball. And if you don't, I'm going to hold on and I'm going to start waving my arms. I'm going to embarrass you in front of everybody, so run down the line. And you don't run down the line if you don't think you're going to get the ball because you don't want to have to run all the way back and defend. And he made him a better player.
You're absolutely right, DJ. I think that's the balance, that's the chemistry that often eludes, the casual observer or someone that's never been in the trenches before is, you have guys like last year it was Andres and Chicho, and these guys are creative players. They're artists. But within that artistry, you need predictable, right? You need fundamental. And, Crooks was the anchor to Andres. And like you said, he led him on runs. He told him as a young player where to move by the way he passed the ball, the way he oriented his body shape when he was receiving it. And again, it allowed Andres to get forward. And if a play broke down, Matt Crooks was doing all the defending for him. So if you don't have that type of balance within the team, you're going to find yourself in a really bad way. But he was definitely the catalyst to a lot of things that we did in the attack that went unnoticed.
We had on one of your contemporaries, I guess, and certainly maybe not as a player, but in administration, Marcelo Balboa. And I asked him, about all this stuff about clicking and meshing and, what's the time frame as you guys just get barely started here. And he was saying about 10 to 12 games. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it just depends. I think typically it takes more time than not. I think that, this result that we had at the weekend injects a bit of, it injects belief. And when there's belief, I think you can get to many things quicker. But I would say, I think that's fair. I think 10, 12 games, you have a really good understanding of the players, from a coaching perspective that are reliable in certain moments. Other guys that do well come in games. You get to see the partnerships in the different setups that we have. And so I think 10 to 12 games is a pretty fair assessment as to how long it takes for a team to gel.
With that in mind, like we saw Marchuk come in last year and make a bit of an impact. The numbers weren't huge, but he's creating opportunities, dangerous balls into the box and all of that. We haven't seen as much. Is that because he's combining with a new set of guys as opposed to who he was combining with last year, and you have to let time for that chemistry to grow?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. New faces, obviously new tendencies, right? And so there's players that are coming in and they're trying to understand Dominic as Dominic's trying to understand them. The other part is, Dom's been dealing, with some personal stuff back in Poland. That's kind of weighed heavy on him. And there's that human piece as well, so oftentimes you want to look at the field and say, I'm going to judge you based on this, when really the issue has nothing to do with soccer. And so he's doing great. I think the last two games, Herediano and Seattle in particular, he's put himself in really, really good positions. He's been threatening in front of goal, and now it's just getting over the hump and put one in the back of the net. And And I believe Dom has goals in him, and he showed that last year in the few games that he played. But in preseason, he was pretty prolific. So I expect Dom to have a fantastic game tomorrow and continue building as a really integral part of this attack.
Marcelo was a good interview, and you guys, a couple Argentine guys running loose on the other side of the mountains over there in Colorado. You got any wild stories to tell about them?
Yeah, I just remember that he used to ride a motorcycle, and when I first got to the club, and it was sliding doors. When I got to Colorado, he left to New York to finish his playing career, and then he came back as kind of a technical director years later. But I think Marcelo Balboa was a guy that the first World Cup I attended in '94. He was one of the heroes on that team. And then so to be able to work with him later is just like this. It was almost surreal. I think he was him and the players of his generation definitely paved the way for my generation to kind of move into that, the next phase of the U.S. national team. And but he's always been a great guy, super supportive, and just a great guy to have around and pick his brain. So he was always available for me. And it was just really strange working with, a hero of mine when I was a young kid.
Well, you better be careful around him. I want you to listen to this. I'm a little older than Pablo, but as luck would have it, we grew up about 2 miles apart and went to the same high school in Phoenix, so we joke about it. And do you have any dirt on him that I could spill when he comes on?
I would never give you dirt on Pablo. You know what it is? It always comes back to bite you in the ass. So I'm gonna pass on the Pablo thing. But yes, we do have a few good stories.
PK always getting the dirt.
Oh man,
that's great stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
I knew I had a good bud in Marcelo.
We won't tell.
So I had occasion to talk to him yesterday afternoon, actually, and I brought that up that this was going to happen, that you were going to be on, and he, with complete calm, Pablo will never give me up. He said it, and he said it so calmly, and he said it so confidently. Pablo will never give me up. It was hilarious.
There's
laughing.
a code. There's a code that you have to follow.
Oh man, I know, but when you're around sports, you're around so much. Like so many weird things happen. There's so many crazy things. So many good stories.
So many crazy things.
Yep. All right, Pablo, we appreciate the time as always. We'll be watching the game tomorrow night. San Diego in town, brand new town. Does it drive you a little nuts? You only get 2 games of tendencies to study here, or it just helps you focus on your own team, which is what you want to do anyway?
That's it. Yeah. We got a good idea as to how they're going to go about their work, and more importantly, how are we going to go about ours to make sure we get the fans involved early and put together a good performance that's worthy of 3 points tomorrow.
There you go. Thanks, Pablo. We'll talk to you again
down
the road.
Thank you.
Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach.